one step, but even that one step is quite big enough. Whereas we are doing a lot of things, but our base itself has to go up, and there reforms like GST will play a major role. If GST is basically, if God gives these people some sense and they are able to clear it up, they convince the parliament and GST sees the light of the day, then yes, our economy will become 4 trillion, because this will be, that will remove all multiple taxes, a common taxation will come, and that will ensure that our goods become more competitive in international market. So that will also increase our size of economy from 1.9 trillion to 4 trillion dollars, and that will also make our exports more competitive at the global level. So these are some of the issues, friends. I feel at the grassroots level we should be able to address it, which is better as compared to what we are having right now in the international markets. This is what I wanted to share. We can have more question answers so that I can basically help people to clear their concepts. And I hope everybody basically liked whatever little knowledge I had. I have tried to share with you. Yes, sir. Please. Yes. Volatility. Yes. Yes. Right. See, basically talking, see, Federal Reserve right now is completely having a wait and watch approach. See, what has happened in USA, their macroeconomics have improved. For example, if I say their unemployment is right now back at 5.1%, which is at their 40 years low. Their jobs have been created. Last 12 months data, if you see, more than 2 lakh jobs they have been able to create every month. So it has come on track. But the fear, see, right now what is the issue? That alone US cannot push the world economy towards growth phase, because all other three partners, Europe, Japan and China, all are in a mess. So basically I don't think that they will right now go with any interest rate hike, at least till December, because till December two things will get clear: elections in US itself, and second, what is the exact outcome of this Brexit. And yes, as of now dollar would definitely become more strong, because relatively it is in far, US is in a far better position as compared to other economies. And obviously if we talk of Great British Pound or Euro, both these currencies will rather get more weaker and weaker, because now even see UK will now be alone. See, a number always counts. It is ultimately the numbers which play a role. Now right now what has happened to Britain? It has become an independent country. Now it will have to frame it again, laws related to immigration, work permit, lot of things will now start actually coming up. And to be very frank, see what has happened, this exit decision, it also came as a shock to the market, because as you correctly said, see, most of the people were thinking that it will stay. Very few have of the theory that it will leave UK, this European Union, and go out. But then this voting has changed the entire thing. Now first thing, whether Parliament will ratify this, so that is a major question. Suppose now they rethink and say that no, this is a blunder which we have done, and rather let us go for re-voting. That is one. Or let us take a call that Parliament will not ratify it and we continue to be in Euro. So these things will take time to get clarity. So by that time definitely currency volatility will be there. And as far as rupee is concerned, yes, there would be pressure, because see, our currency has relatively performed better in last 1.5 year. If you see, we depreciated 3.5%, but if you see Asian currencies, they have depreciated 15 to 20%. So relatively, on relative terms, yes, we are far better, but we need to do lot of grassroots level work in order to make our currency strong as well as our economy strong. So these are actually two separate set of challenges which the government will have to face. One is domestic macro issues and second is global issues.
Like my question is related to dollar. Whatever happened to the world, dollar goes up.
Yes.
Even whatever happened to US,
It
if
goes
there is
up.
a recession in US,
Then,
dollar goes up.
yes.
Like in 2008, the whole problem was related to US.
Yes.
But again dollar
Went
goes
up.
up.
Yes.
Now there is a problem in Europe, dollar goes up. There is a problem in China, dollar goes up.
See, basically what has happened, sir, see, dollar is the international currency one. Second, IMF and World Bank, these are two the most biggest organizations in the world. They have been formed by US, and they, yes, formed by US, controlled by, in fact, nobody can become World Bank president unless he has the support from US. This time the president who is World Bank president, he is a dentist and Korean, but born and brought up in US. Now they have made him the president. So it is ultimately US who decides okay, who is going to run these institutions. One. Second, basically dollar flows in international capital markets, and dollar is considered as a safe haven. See, there are gold is considered as a safe haven, dollar is considered as a safe haven.
Having a recession, why allow dollars to go down?
Because ultimately even then see gold and dollar have an age old relationship. See, even when the formal currency system was not there, $1 was 38 ounce of gold. So that is basically strategically they have poised themselves. Otherwise you say the way they printed the currency, why inflation didn't came in US but it came in the rest of the world, because that money through FIIs was going to emerging economies. See, their basic benefit is what? They twist the policies in a way that always suits them. Even they print the money, the world is suffering. See, right now what has happened in last 5 years, if you see now, whatever growth has come, that is because of liquidity, not because of demand-driven growth. That is the major difference. These people printed liquidity. See, first they printed $1 trillion, quantitative easing one. Then they printed $600 billion, quantitative easing two. Still they were not satisfied. They went with QE3. Now, where did this entire money go? See, US consumer have not taken it because they are already loaded with debt capital. So this money through FIIs, the banks, US banks have given it to FII. They have channelized this money to other asset classes, especially the stock markets in the BRIC nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So that is why their liquidity gets distributed globally. And whenever there is an issue and when they pull it back, our market starts feeling the hit. See, if you see December 2015, when US did its first round of rate hike, in January and February, we had 14,000 crore rupees of FII winding the money and taking back to USA. So dollar is the ultimate heaven. It is the greenback, and greenback never defaults. If we recollect, in 2nd August 2011, when Standard and Poor had downgraded US economy, within 2 days, $12 trillion worth of stock market capitalization was lost within 4 days. And the Standard and Poor MD, he coincidentally happened to be an Indian, lost his job. He was an Indian settled in USA. He was the MD of Standard and Poor who took this decision of downgrading US economy. Within 48 hours, he was made to go home. So ultimately, it's a fact that US holds the monopoly to the global economy. And most importantly, even today, in 1999, US was contributing 33% in global GDP. Right now, it has slightly come down to 23-24%. But even then, it still holds the key to the global wealth. So if US is okay, the world relatively goes well. If they are having issue, obviously the world is feeling these jerks.
One more question, like every country who dependent on export try to keep their currency down so
Down,
that
yes. Exports
are
go up,
competitive.
yes.
US dollar is increasing every year, so isn't it they are why don't they try to keep their dollar down so that their economy is
See,
competitive?
it all depends basically what kind of economic structure you have. See, it is not an export-oriented economy. Rather, they run the world's highest current account deficit. Current account deficit is there is $413 billion. So they basically import lot of things. It is a consumer-driven economy. In fact, their unpaid credit card bill is $800 billion. So they are more comfortable in basically having a strong dollar than a weaker dollar. Second, if a strong dollar is there, it sends a signal to the global economy that we are perfectly fine. See, just understand one thing, okay? This interest rate hike, what is the quantum? The quantum is only 0.25%. It is not that something they have to make it 4-5%. It is only 0.25 by which they will rise. But even then the world fears. Why? Because it is not the quantum of interest rate. It is the message that economy is sending to the global investors. See, when they increase the interest rate, now the message they are sending is that we are perfectly fine, you come and invest here. So that is why emerging economies fear that if US raises interest rate, our capital will go back there. Because we are not able to provide that ease of doing business which US is able to provide. So these are all those kind of equations which they have in mind. Second,
More of a confidence.
confidence, exactly. It is more of a confidence building measure and a message to the global investors that their economy is the best place to invest.
US are also a part of euro, soon come out of euro, they will balance the books, right?
See, basically what happens, these are the two major economic powers in the world, Europe and US, because these
And pound and
pound, pound and yeah, because see, basically Great Britain, it never accepted euro as a full-time currency. They went with the dual currency system. In fact, to be very frank, that was one of the reasons euro was never totally successful. had Britain completely adopted euro, then what I, again, is my personal opinion, I feel that in 2011, in 2008, when this global crisis had come, euro had full probability of becoming the global currency. And that at that time, in fact, many software companies in India had started billing in euro. But unfortunately, before things could materialize or legally euro could become international currency, 2011 debacle came and they were again back to square one. See, the simple term, if what I understand now, if US is to be killed now, dollar has to be made a local currency. Automatically they will die. Their debt to GDP ratio is 103% even today. Their unpaid credit card bill is $800 billion. Means the mess which they created for global economy, they have not learnt any lesson and still they are swiping the credit card. And even Raghuram Rajan says that if the next recession comes, it will be from the credit card industry because the way they have lended money. See, there are two books which he has written. One is A Fault Line and one is Saving Capitalism from Capitalists. If we read the second book, Saving Capitalism from Capitalists, he clearly tells that if the world, these so-called superpowers, do not stop using this cheap monetary policy and leverage balance sheets, the world will still have the risk of having a third recession. That is clearly told in that book. And that is what he is even right now advocating. See, basically what happens, when GDP goes up, now, it has to go by a demand-based method, not by liquidity-based method. Here what has happened, whatever growth has come, it is because of cheap liquidity injected by US and other economies also, because when Japan was in problem, they increased their stimulus from 60 trillion yen to 80 trillion yen. Again, China is doing the same thing. So basically, it is not the actual demand which is coming in global economy, and that is the cause of worry. See, plus if we see, what has happened globally. Oxfam study says that 4% of world's population controlling 96% of world's wealth. See, this so-called capitalism is also creating lot of conflicts. See, basically, if there are certain nations who are prospering, against that there are many countries who are suffering. So this world will never have a, what we can say, sustained development. For sustainable development, the growth has to be equally distributed, or at least marginally distributed, so that even the weaker sections, weaker economies benefit. What is, to be very frank, happening in our economy? The rich is becoming richer, the poor and the the middle class is finding it more difficult to run the show. So that model won't last for long. That will always have social and economic impact, or rather law and order will backfire on that system. See, one thing, see, the way government is rolling out reforms, it has rolled out FDI in lot of sectors, airline sector, aviation sector, then basically pharma sector. See, it is not about rolling out FDI. You can always increase the percentage to 100. But the issue is whether foreign investors are confident putting money in your system. And right now that confidence is not coming. See, in spite of PM's visit, almost he visited more than 25 countries. But if you see the grassroots level, where money has come, no major big investment has come into our economy. Forget basically the FDI, even the NRIs have not invested, because wherever country has invested, he has addressed two sets of people. One is those governments and second is Indian diaspora who have settled there as NRIs. So neither of them have invested. So that is what the issue is. See, we had issues like Vodafone retrospective tax, then this government with this Maggi issue. See, in Maggi also, basically now Nestle is not a small MNC, it's a global MNC having huge presence in India. Now, without any rhyme and reason, we banned the product. The samples went to all international laboratories, everybody said it is fine. So then we removed it. See, these things, they send very wrong signals. For example, last year, if you see on 20th February, the finance minister in budget telling that there will be no MAT on FII, and on 2nd March, income tax department sending notices to 68 FIIs, claiming you have to pay 40,000 crore rupees. So these kind of stance gives lot of negative impression, and that is why foreigners are not comfortable. See, when in BSE foreign delegations come, their concern, what generally I have observed is, they have two main concerns. One is policy stability. They say that you change policy overnight. There is no stability, no predictability. And second, very arbitrary tax demands. That anything comes to your mind, you basically write a notice to. So those kind of things are actually causing problem. In fact, when I had just gone to CII headquarters there in Delhi, we had a meeting where 21 associations representing 21 sectors had come. Sorry to say, but not even a single association was telling that we are comfortable doing business in the current government. This is from the horse's mouth I am telling. Whatever I had seen there with my own eyes, heard, and in the name of basically, see, tax collection, it is more of a tax harassment. Lot of people, businesses, even corporates are being harassed unnecessarily. See, revenue has to be collected, but tax revenue will come only when if profit is there. If profit is not there, how will you collect tax revenue? So that should not become a tool for these things. See, basically, number one, see, reforms has to continue, no doubt. But the point is that announcing reforms is not enough. Reforms has to reach the base level, grassroots level. See, nothing is going at the grassroots level. See, right now, as I said, our capacity utilization is only 71%. That means what? That industry is not even able to utilize the current installed capacity. So why it will go for additional investment? Now, if additional investment don't take place, how will job opportunities get created? See, our entire demographic dividend theory, what we are selling to the world, will fall true only if we are able to create income for our young population, income opportunity, that is job opportunities. Or alternative is that we create businessmen. But even to create businessmen is not easy, because from where you will give them capital? That is one. Second, see, Russia itself, see, all commodity driven economies right now. If you see BRICS, BRICS, except India, to be very frank, BRIC has not remained only. Every economy is in a problem because they are more or less commodity driven economies. Russia's GDP right now is minus 1.3%. And to be very frank, the way even that economy is behaving, see, they tried to capture Ukraine, and that had created a lot of tension at the global level. Now, if these type of steps are taken to divert attention from economic problems to political problems, it will further aggravate the situation rather than solving it. And there is another basically theory also, that why even US is supporting low oil prices, so that Russia gets wiped off, because even Russia is not listening to what US is telling. See, last time when G7 meeting had taken place, that time G7 nations had told China, okay, basically why you are doing this currency devaluation, other things. To which China had bluntly replied, okay, it is my internal policy, what you people have to do about it. So, see, to be very frank, the issue is what? That on the face people support, other countries support, but when it comes to critical issue, still protectionist policies are being followed. India's denial to NSG is the best example, nuclear power. Otherwise, these all economies who have praised Modi, who have praised their work, then what is their problem? Why can't they support our entry into that group? So that is something which is debatable.
You said ki there are four drivers of engines of world economy.
Mostly.
Europe,
Europe, US, China, Japan.
and US. Like US is the only one which is growing. China has problem, but
Problem.
China may overcome the problem because it has lot of other good things. But Japan and Europe, they are terminally.
Yes,
I don't
exactly.
think ever Japan
Yes,
or
it will be
Europe
very
will be
difficult.
growth engine again.
It will be very
Especially
difficult.
Europe, because they don't, except for Germany, all other countries are just
Correct.
feeding on Germany, or their only income is tourism.
Yes, exactly.
So what do you
See,
foresee the future of Europe? I don't see any future of Europe
see,
except for Germany.
to an extent you are very perfectly correct. See, there are reasons for this. The total unemployment in Germany is in Europe is 25%. Now that is a very mammoth figure. The unemployment rate at 25%. Second, entire thing is based on tourism, which is again a skewed industry. So people may go there, may not go there. See, these economies need to de-risk. De-risk means they need to find out other means whereby their economy can stabilize. For example, as if you take similarly oil Gulf countries, their only income is from oil. Now, if you are dependent just on one source, and if something happens to them, obviously you will be in a trap. So, diversification and allowing other industries to set up is the key thing. And second thing, they will have to make a lot of control on their fiscal deficits. See, basically what has happened, each government was spending money, and the result was we had this PIGS problem. Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece and Spain, which borrowed extensively, and now they don't have capital to repay back. So that has actually triggered this all problem. Excessive borrowing, leverage capital, and not utilizing that capital properly. So if those things are controlled, fiscal deficits are given strict targets, and budget cuts are done, then slowly and gradually, but yes, it will take lot of time. They are terminally ill, and it will not be an easy task to bring these economies back on track. So definitely,
Population doesn't want to work.
see, now see, that is there are a lot of issues. So it will take a lot of time for these economies to settle down. And till these economies settle down, world cannot have a smooth ride. It is very simple. World will not have a smooth ride. And after the Brexit, the main fear is what? Even other countries may now go up for a referendum and say we are also walking out. So that entire sanctity of Eurozone doesn't remain, and it may push the world again into a brink of recession. Yes. See, see, basically currency hedging, each company will have to see what is their exposure, what to what extent they have. Definitely, they will have to hedge out, no? Otherwise, obviously, they will have problems. So, their corporate finance department, as I said, Tata Steel, 30% revenue consolidated sales comes from this thing. What we can say from the UK. But there, if the currency depreciates, they will benefit because they have a manufacturing facility there. Now, had they sales or other operations, probably it would have hurted them. So, it will depend from company to company what kind of strategy they will have to make. And corporate India will again have to work out their own way. And hedging also see comes at a cost. No? So it is not that they hedge and their risk is removed. Because earlier also with forward contracts, banks have tried to hedge, but in that there were a lot of litigations against banks that these products were not cleared because ultimately corporates incurred losses in that. 2012-13, the forex loss of corporate India was more than $5 billion. In spite of the best strategies, best minds at work. So even predicting currency is not that an easy task because it depends on various factors and we do not know which factor will weigh in which sense and what importance will it have at that particular point of time. So see, if this same event had happened in 2011, probably it would have been much of a discounted event because that time already Greece, Spain and that issue was at very high spot. So probably that time if this thing would have happened, then this much implication would not have come. Rather what it is having now, because now the whole world cannot afford another recession. IMF and World Bank cannot afford again world GDP growing below 2%. So now the stakes are much higher than what they were 5 years back. And as the time goes now, this global integration also creates more problem. See, global integration is a two-sided sword. If things are okay, you benefit, you enjoy the fruits of others being okay. But at the same time, the risk is that if they are ill, you will also have fever. Yes, definitely. The whole world is having total debt of $57 trillion. $57 trillion is the total debt of the world economy, and that is a large sum, very, very big sum. See, actually speaking, why these problems have come? Because if you see debt to GDP ratio, USA 103. We just take simple data. Japan 229%, China 282, Greece 177, Spain 120, Italy 160. So just think, these are all developed economies. Now, how they are going to repay back this entire debt capital? Do they have a roadmap? To be very frank, the answer is no. They are just See, they have been financed by various multilateral agencies, loans have been taken from World Bank, investors have given money to them. See, it is just like this. Who financed Kingfisher? Ultimately, it is you or my money only. With some way we kept the deposit with the bank, bank gave it to them, thinking that it's a fruitful investment. See, at the time of taking debt or giving debt, nobody thinks no, it will turn as a bad debt. That is what our accounting says, going concern concept. Okay, things will be okay and the concern will be running eternally. But how can one predict at the time of giving that such things will come out or that such skeletons will come out? See, 5 years back, nobody thought in 2007, had anybody thought that the gold will rally from 9,000 rupees per 10 grams to 33,000 rupees per 10 grams. Because that time everybody was thinking that US is the most heaven, nothing can happen to US. But the 2008 crisis again proved that even such a big economy can go into recession, plus take the world into recession. So this interconnectivity, see basically what has happened, integration of global economies now, it is a two-edged sword. It has benefits also, it has disbenefits also. But at times disbenefits are far dangerous and far more critical as compared to benefits.
With so many problems, are we moving towards economic collapse and where do you see light at the end of the tunnel?
See, basically, as far as our economy is concerned, as I said, our economy is relatively stable as compared to other economies. But at the same time, if we don't address our domestic level issues, even we will face lot of difficulty. See, because in India also, if you see the Gini coefficient, it's a coefficient which measures inequality in the life of people. That is rising very fast. See, on one hand, see, we have ample of graduates passing out. We are telling to the world, see, such a young population we have. On the other hand, do we have job opportunities to absorb them? And suppose we fail to absorb them, then what will happen? So that will create severe law and order problem. Because an educated unemployed is far more dangerous than an uneducated unemployed. Uneducated unemployed will do labor work because his objective is clear, to fill the stomach. He doesn't have ego. But will an educated person do labor work? No. Because he has invested money, time, energy, taking degrees. So obviously he will create a problem for the society. So actually government has to, that is why I said, okay, we have two sets of problem. One is our internal domestic issues which needs immediate attention, and second is macro issues which more or less has an effect on stock market currency, which still can be managed by various defensive policies. So we have to see that our economy fundamentals are strong, not that we are just changing the base year and then telling that GDP is growing. See, GDP, if it is really growing at 7.89%, then in that case, our corporate profitability should have risen. The industry capacity utilization should be plus 95%. Then we can say, yes, the economy is really growing. So we will have to address these problems in a different way and have two approaches. One is for external issues, one is for domestic issues.
Sir, for domestic issues, which are the factors which will contribute to the economy? Like one is GST, but what are the other factors? Next 3 years or 5 years,
See,
which will
yes.
go to economy from 1.7 to
Yeah, see, apart from GST, now what I understand that we need to shift the base of economy from being only a service-oriented economy to more of a manufacturing-based economy. See, that will create jobs at grassroots level, and that will give economy much more stability. See, right now what is happening in a service-oriented economy, now jobs do get created, but they are of intellectual nature, so the takers are less. We need to have more of a manual jobs, so that those people who are under what we can say qualified, undereducated also get absorbed, because in our economy still they are in majority. See, certain data to tell, okay, we say that our literacy ratio is 64%, but basically this includes even those who can just put a signature. So if you say actually our literacy ratio is not more than 55%, so how will you absorb those 45% of the labor force? We have 6 lakh villages, only 30,000 villages still have a bank branch. Other villages still don't have a bank branch. So these are critical issues. Our school dropout ratio between standard 1 and standard 12 is 88%. So basically when these children who drop out, see, that means if I put 100 students in standard 1, 12 reach first standard college. Now when these students drop out, who will absorb them? So these are critical issues, sir. So that is why we need to change the base of GDP. Base in the sense the composition of GDP. We need to increase the contribution of agriculture and manufacturing and reduce this over dependency on service sector. Then our economy will create lot of opportunities for a common man, for a normal person. Second, basically what I feel is that lot of impetus should be focused towards agriculture sector. This trading in commodities, in agriculture commodities, which is causing inflation, black marketing, hoarding, that has to be stopped. Because every time what happens is inflation goes up, we tell the RBI boss, you handle this headache, and RBI has nothing to, not much of an ammunition. It increases the interest rate. The result is nothing happens to inflation, but the economy goes for a toss. Economy in 2013 our GDP came down to just 4.6%. It was primarily because the fact was true that our repo rate had touched 8%, so loans were available at 11%. So at 11%, why would an industry take loan and expand? You forget industry, even a common man will postpone his basically buying decisions. Last 3 years, more than 2 lakh jobs got destroyed in automobile sector because of high interest rate. Because 90% vehicles are sold even today through finance. See, our economy, if you see now, we have less rich people, less poor people. Our main base is middle class, which is in a big way affected by monetary policy. That is the interest rate, because it acts as a catalyst for making his buying or selling decision. So those things we will have to keep it in mind. So unless these structural things are done, second, by saying that we have increased FDI, see, increasing FDI will not solve the matter, that percentage. But giving confidence to companies that you invest money, your investment is safe, you will not be harassed by tax authorities, that will ensure that money comes and job opportunities get created. And we will have to focus more on FDI rather than FII. See, FII is a hot money, it comes on Monday, it goes on Thursday. We cannot do anything about it, and it doesn't help even a common man. So basically we need to focus on FDI capital, which creates job opportunities at grassroots level. See, stress the set, our banking system is under lot of pressure. Basically, if we say in 2012, the gross NPA was 1.86 lakh crore. Right now it is at 4 lakh crore. So our all PSU banks, see, after Rajan aggressively pursued them to provide provision, right now all banks are in losses. And the bigger risk is that since their balance sheets are crunched today, they do not have capital to lend to the deserving projects. So here also government will have to go stepwise, inject capital into banks. Either, see, they announced 25,000 crore in budget, which is a peanut. The need of the hour is 40,000 crore rupees. So the option is either help banks to raise money through stock market, that is OFS method, offer for sale method, or second is what is being discussed right now, that issue recapitalization bonds, where people will invest in the bond and that money government can give it, which is guaranteed by central government, and that money they give it to the bank so that their balance sheets become strong. See, what will happen by 2018, we will have Basel III norms. So in Basel III, when it comes now, your capital adequacy ratio from 9% will go to 11.5%. So that will require lot of capital on banks' balance sheet. So unless the government starts preparing from right now, in 2018 we'll have to cut a sorry figure. because this much of capital to get in short time will be a very big challenge for banks themselves also and for government also. So it will has to be a combined and coordinated effort. Then things will move. Yes, sir. OFS is basically banks. Yes, you will reduce your stake, but through the stock market method. Where OFS is already you are listed, you further dilute your stake. But even yes, but here what has happened, sir? Okay, even the market have to support it now, because if the markets are in bear run, they fear to come with OFS or any issue also, because they fear that investors may not fill up. And right now the way balance sheets are torn, to get valuation is a very tough call. So right now even the method is that government will have to inject liquidity.